Hey yo, it's BradenLord, and welcome to my special on how to mod Rome Total War. So the first thing you might ask is, well, BradenLord, why would you want to mod Rome Total War? Isn't it good enough? Well, I don't know. There's some balance issues I find with the game. As far as, some nations have better units, which I guess is more historically accurate, but for a gameplay standpoint, I like to have everything kind of equal so everybody has a fighting chance. And also, it's kind of annoying that, barbarians only get up to city level. In a barbarian invasion, they fixed that, and they can get up to huge cities. So I went in between that and, gave them large cities. And also, there's plenty of uses. You can... it allows you to make your own maps. You can use creativity, create your own maps. You can do a lot of things, and really just kind of enjoy. But before we start, I should warn you guys that you should always make a backup of your files. As you can see, my my name for this folder is the legit Rome Total War game unmodded, which isn't entirely true, but there's no major mods. I have 4 or 5 different versions of Rome Total War on my computer, and some of them I'm working on currently, some of them I'm not, and some of them are like big mods that you download and stuff I don't know, you can look them up. There's several good mods out there like Rome Total Realism or Europa Barbarum that are pretty good, and yeah, Google search those, and those are pretty good. So anyway, today we're going to be covering pretty much just text file modifications, because that's pretty much all I've been able to master, so I'll share that mastery with you. And text file modifications, basically, let's just click on a random one here. Rome Total War comes with a bunch of these text files, and what these have a bunch of data and bracket information that you can change all these. You can change this information as long as you just got to keep the formatting the same basically, and you can change the information of the game. So that's about that. Yeah, again, just make sure you have plenty of backups, and yeah, so let's dive right in. Okay, well, the first thing you have to do is, first thing to do is to find your own Total War save file. As you can see here, I have Barbarian Invasion and Expansion installed, so you might not see that. And there might be some little differences here, but they should be pretty much the same. First thing you want to do is find your own Total War, and if you already have a shortcut on the desktop, you don't have to do this little step here. But you can create a shortcut, and yes, I want to place it on the desktop. And what you do with this is you want to make some modifications to the tagline, or the target line here, or the tagline as they say, so that you can check on your progress and make sure there's no errors. So you want to have -NE. That enables you to view Rome Total War in a windowed mode, so you can switch back between your text files, check things really quickly without having to exit the game every time. So it's really convenient there. And -show ERR is that's the error console. So if there's an error in one of the text files, because sometimes it'll kick you out and it doesn't give you any warning. But if you enable this will give you a warning when you exit Rome Total War. And it'll tell you pretty specifically which file is wrong and what kind of error it is. So you should be able to easily fix this. Another thing you want to do before you start modifying, yeah, there's a good word. Go to your data folder, go to text, and generally speaking, you want to copy this information out outside of the folder, modify it, and then put it back in. That's usually the best way to do it. So I'm just going to open this because I've already done this modification on the describe shortcuts menu. Describe shortcuts node. If you go down into I believe it's, I don't remember exactly. It's under, there we go, show console. And initially I think for show console here it says disabled after it, or something similar to that, and you just have to delete that and put this back in, and that'll allow you to get the Debug Console. So now we can open up Rome Total War here, and I'll show you what the Debug Console is like, so that you can kind of see what it's useful for. It's very useful for testing like building mods and unit mods, because you can't really test that from the initial strategy setup. As you can see, it kind of overflows with my what do you, I don't remember, I don't know what you call this, I'm dumb. So usually what I do is I can pull this over to the side like that, and then I have full access to this. Skip the intro, and I have the sound turned off as well, so that doesn't annoy me. And after you do the describe shortcuts menu, notepad, after you modify that, you can go to control settings and over to miscellaneous, and it should be in here, show debug console, yeah. And it's not going to have anything set, so you can set some button to it by, I think you double click, like if you double click this, yeah, you can set a button. I have it on the right arrow key. I don't know why I picked that, but that's what I picked. So yeah, just make sure it's set to some button that is not, just set it to some button that you pretty much don't use for anything else. There's not too many buttons, like M, escape. Tilde is like the standard button. That's what some, if your version comes already enabled, it'll be in the tilde button. Some versions come with it enabled, some don't. So tilde is a pretty standard choice. And my computer is shut up. Holy cow, man! Really? And anyway, we're gonna go. After that's done, you can go into a campaign. Like say, let's just start up a July campaign real quick, and get rid of that. And my computer is being very loud. I'm sorry, guys. Hopefully, the one good news is I should be able to get a new computer soon. Hopefully, maybe this summer. And yeah, my quality will definitely improve from there. And as you can see, for some reason, we can see the whole map. We can see everything. You see all the territories. Well, that's because in this version, I have certain modifications enabled. So if you click the button to open your debug console, and there's certain cheats. There are technically cheats, but they're very useful for mod testing. And I don't use them in the normal game pretty much at all. But these cheats will allow you to pretty much check your mods and stuff. So the first one is toggle fog of war. Now you have to make sure that all these cheats need to be correct Ks, because sometimes like oh yeah, I hit the button again. If you say you type in toggle fog of war like that, it's not going to work. It's not going to recognize it. So you have to type in toggle fog of war. So just be very careful with how you're spelling it. And if this doesn't seem to work, you just try changing your spelling and stuff, and that should work. So anyway, we as you can see, that toggles on and off the fog of war on the map. That's what the toggle fog of war means. So that's very useful. So if you want to see all the regions, if you're making modifications to regions, and you just want to be able to see everything in the map, And there's a couple other useful mods, such as add money. That'll add money to your treasury, I believe. And the maximum is 4,000 at a time, so you can just kind of, I just usually if you hit the up key, it repeats the last command. I just hit the up key and enter a bunch. And that usually works pretty well. And another very useful one is add population. So we're going to add population to our capital city there, Eretium. Make sure it's spelled correctly. And again with the 4,000 cap, so I'm going to add 20,000 there, so I can show you the next trick. And I'm going to get out of the debug console real quick. As you see, that added 20,000 to the population. Or maybe did I only do it 4 times? So whatever. Anyway, another very useful one if you want to test how your buildings work and if they actually do improve things, is you can, as you can see, it's turned red because of all the population. As you can see, we can queue up a bunch of buildings here, and let's queue up some units too. And basically, what you can do is process CQ, and then type in the city name. Oops. And that'll build all the buildings automatically, and they'll all scroll down on the side. But that builds the buildings automatically, so you can test the size of your cities. I did this to test what the barbarian and the large city is looking like, just to make sure it did it correctly. And then you can do process You can just change this to process RQ. Oh, wait a sec. Hold on. I think I typed it in wrong. Okay, maybe not. Maybe I don't remember the one for the recruitment queue, but basically there's one for the recruitment queue. You can look it up. Just look up Rome Total War cheats, and it should be there. But these are very useful ways to tell, make sure your buildings are building correctly and stuff. So that's about all we're going to do on Rome Total War for now. First thing we're going to look at is campaign mods, because those are kind of the overarching things. Those are the things that matter the most. Unit and building mods will be coming after, so stick around. And alright, so pretty much all the text files you need for campaign modification are in the data folder. There's pretty much nothing else you need. And over here, okay, if you go to data, world, maps, and go to base, this will show your the base maps of the regions of the basic campaign map. So if you open this real quick, shut up, quick time. As you can see, these maps are interestingly color coded, and they represent, if you notice, they represent the map of the mini map. Basically, they represent the whole world. This one is climates, for example, and the other ones are regions and other things. And these will need to be modified if you're going to make a major change to the campaign map. These will have to be modified with some kind of preferably not Paint program, because it's a little hard to do it with that, and TGA files I don't think are supported by Paint. So you're gonna have to use like Photoshop, and I have GIMP 2.0. That is a free program. It's definitely not as good as Photoshop, but it is a pretty decent free program. And you use these the colors, like for example the regions file. The regions file, it's quite small, but as you can see, there's many different colors. There's a different color for every region, and that corresponds to a certain particular text file. And yeah, this map is used quite heavily. And if we go back into the text folder, there is a couple files that you will need to edit. And for example, for the Imperial campaign, there's a file called Imperial Campaign Region Settlement Names. So if we open that, we see all the region and settlement names. They're not in any particular order because they are tied in with other files. But you can see the names in the brackets here are the names that are referred to in the text files, and these are the names that appear in the actual game. So you could go through and change all these names. If you want to change some names, you can go through and change these names, and that is something you can do to change the names of regions quite easily. Like, say you don't want Rome, say you want Crete, say you want the region of Crete to be called Poop Land or something, or with opposite caps because I had caps lock on. You could do that, but I'm not going to do that right now. So that's a very important file. Don't save that. And also, another thing you want to pay attention to is campaign descriptions. These refer to when you click on factions in the campaign loadout. These refer to. These give you loadouts on the campaign. You see, they're quite lengthy for most nations, and yeah. Also, this is a very important part for if you want to unlock all factions. You have to make sure all factions are accounted for here. As you can see, there's each faction needs to have a space in here, and they need to have a little description. It can be in one space. It doesn't have to be technically anything, but it needs to be in here at some point. As you can see, they're kind of done like, we want to become the Spanish, help us, But that's a very important step. So if you want to make sure, if you want to keep the decks. If you want to unlock all nations, you got to make sure to do that. So anyway, we're going to pull out of this folder. We're going to go back to Data, World, Maps. This time we're going to go to Campaign, and as you can see, there's a lot of my campaigns in here. If you put The Imperial Campaign is under the Imperial Campaign folder, but any other campaigns will be under the Provincial Campaign under single player. So just be warned of that. That's how you access the other campaigns, and then it displays a list of the available provincial campaigns, and then you get to choose what you want. So anyway, if we open up the Imperial Campaign, you can see there's lots of files in here. These are the maps of. These are pictures. These are like the little maps that appear in the middle are these files, and these are the leader pictures for the Romans. So if you want to insert your own, you can do that. And you just have to make sure to name them the same thing. And anyway, you have to, as you can see, they have some obsolete files in here, like these. These are obsolete because the campaign description is file. Is that? But the important one you want to look at here first is actually it's where is it? Oh, one important file you want to look in here is regions and settlements. And these names should all be the same that is found in the Imperial Campaign regions and settlements. They should all be the same. This is how it links it to that. Like it uses this file for the lookup, and then it links it back to that file in the text folder. So you gotta make sure that those two are exactly the same. And another very important file in here is the describe strategy. We'll revisit this in a moment. But for now, just take this in as one of the most important files of modification. So, we're going to we're going to go back to the base folder. And in the base folder, there's a couple things. Describe disasters. Basically, it's kind of self-explanatory. It even shows you what kind of information it shows you how to modify it. It shows what each thing does. And basically, this is for the random event disasters in the world, which are kind of rare, but you can choose you can set the frequency to like 1, so that's like every 2 turns a random event will happen. So you can be mean like that if you want, but basically, yeah, there's that. And another very important file is describe regions. Now, for example, here let's highlight this one. Let's say Britannia Inferior. That's one of the towns in Britain. And what this does is it takes the region name here, and then it links the town name to it, so that the game knows those two are combined. It assigns. I believe this assigns the base faction that it belongs to. That doesn't really matter as long as I don't think it really matters which one it is at all. But it's just kind of a nice reference for the disc strat. We'll see in a little bit here. And this here is the rebel army. This is the rebels in that territory. I have not mastered how to modify rebels, so we'll not be going over that. But I'm sure you can look that up on Google. There's probably plenty of places where you can find how to modify rebels. And here is a very important line. This is the color. This is the I think this is RGB. This is the RGB color of the region, as you saw on the regions map with all the different colors. This is the RGB, so it knows exactly which region you're talking about with the pixels, and it'll be able to modify it. And these are the resources. This is also links with the disc strat, so it knows what resources are in here. I think this is the base income level, and this is the base farming level. They could be reversed, I'm not sure. But basically that's it, and they got all the regions in here, so you can go through and modify certain things, and such. And also here, a very important file is the map.rwm. If you make any serious changes to the campaign map, you'll need to delete this file, because this is the file. This is like a stabilizing file. When you run a campaign map, it creates this file, and this file pretty much reaffirms, okay, everything's in the right place where it's supposed to be. So, if you make any serious changes to the campaign map, you need to make sure this file is deleted before you try to run it. Otherwise, you'll get lots of errors, and it just won't work ever. So, be very careful of that. Anyway, back to campaign folder, and now we're going to talk about the describe strategy. So let's go to the Imperial Campaign here. And in the describe strategy, let's full screen this. And as you can see here, the campaign, Imperial Campaign. For your own custom campaigns, you can change that. That'll change the name at the top. This is a very important line. Again, pay attention if you want to be able to change what factions you can play. Playable factions here. You can put up to 20 factions here before it'll start clipping off, and you won't be able to see the 21st faction because there are 21 factions. So you can put every name in here. I would not advise playing as the Roman Senate. There's a lot of glitches because you are the Senate. You're not supposed to be able to play as them, so there's a lot of glitches with the UI. There's lots of crashes that happen. The game does not support you playing as the Roman Senate. So that's why it's non-playable for me. Generally speaking, a few of these nations like Macedon and Pontus, they're under the non-playable section. You just have to copy them up here. Make sure you spell them right. Make sure you have one tab. Keep the same formatting. And unlockable means you have to defeat them in the campaign to unlock them. There's really no need. You might as well just put them up here. And start date, end date. I set the end date to 2011 just because I'm a prankster like that. Just to give me unlimited time, basically. And this is the brigand spawn. This is the field rebel armies, the random rebel armies spawn rate, and this is the pirate spawn rate. I believe the higher these numbers are, the less likely they'll spawn. And this is the landmark section. This details where the landmarks are. So if you wanted to change where the landmarks are, I think you can do that here. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. And then this is the resource section, as you saw in the described regions. These resources are tied in with that, and these resources are placed in the regions, and you have to make sure there's a ratio. You have to make sure everything lines up, basically. So, and again, these are XY values on the on the region's map. There's an X and Y value that you have to make sure you match up with. As far as that's pixels, X and Y, by the way. And if we go down on sound emitters and events section, there's a separate file for events, and I don't know what that is. So anyway, here's the start of the faction section, and we're only going to go through one faction here, just because you can pretty much find everything you need with the Judea. This describes the faction name. This is the faction AI type. There's many different types. I would advise looking this up on Google or some other search engine because this is kind of hard to figure out on your own. But the first describes how they like to fight, I believe, and the second describes how they what kind of units they build. Like Caesar's like heavy infantry, and comfortable means like occasionally doing battle. Not like blitzkriegs and stuff. I believe that's how it works. And that super faction Roman Senate, you can set super factions for other nations. There can only be one super faction in the game at a time, but you can set, like, for example, if you want Macedon to be a super faction, you can set all the Greek nations to be. You can put this super faction Macedon under all the Greek nations, and it'll actually it doesn't work very well, but it was an interesting experiment that I tried out once. But usually you don't want to mess with that. And under here you can see the settlement tab, and this has a level. It goes from town, large town, I believe city, large city, and huge city. And this is the region that it's in. So they don't need a settlement name because they have it in the described regions file. They have the settlement linked with the region, so they don't need it there. And year founded. Usually leave that to 0. I don't know what that does, but just leave it to 0. Population, of course, you know what that is, how many people. You want this to default set unless you make a new clan set, which I don't know how to do, so don't ask me, but I would just leave that to default set. Faction creator, that is what culture the city is at the start. So if you want to make it extra challenge, you could set this to, like, say, Macedon, and then you get a culture bonus, or you get a culture penalty in that city starting off, because it would be Greek culture settlement, but it would be under your control at the beginning, basically. And again, be very careful with the formatting. Keep the formatting exactly the same, or otherwise it can cause some problems. And as you can see here, this is the building menu. This is one block of a building. You got the brackets, and then this is the type of building. There's many types of buildings. We'll cover that a little bit later in the described buildings file. And then this is the specific building. You always have to make sure that the governor building lines up with the town level, like a governor's villa lines up with a large town. You can't put a governor's palace with a large town. That'll cause some errors. So just be very careful of that. And if we go down below the regions here, we can see the character information. These character informations describe all the armies that are on the battle map at the beginning with their location here. This shows their skills starting off. This is their name. This right here shows that he's the faction leader. And here is the army tab. You have to put a unit for each unit, and then the type of unit. You have to be very careful. We'll go over this in the describe units section. And this is the experience, armor level, and weapon level. These go from 0. This goes from 0 to 9, 0 to 3, 0 to 3. And basically the same for the rest of the characters. This says heir, because that's the faction heir. And guys like diplomats, they'll have the diplomat, spy, admiral, and their area. And same thing with admiral. He has the same kind of navy loadout as the armies do. And down below that is the character record. Now this is very important. I'm not exactly sure how the character record works, but you have to be very careful and make sure it's in the same format. If you change family members around, you have to make sure it's in the same format, or otherwise it just won't work. Every tag, the character record is basically the non-general at the moment, guys. Because as you can see, these guys are males, and they will become generals, but they're not of age yet. So they have to put never a leader on the tag of that, and alive, of course, unless you want to start with dead guys. And all the women of the family start here as well. And then this is the relative tree. This is how you get the family tree, is with these relative lines. So that's basically all of the disc strat. There's a lot you can do with this, and this is definitely what you need to change the campaign map. So if you're looking for the campaign information, I hope I covered it all, and I'll see you on the buildings and units description. And here we go. This is the buildings and units description section. First, let's go over the. This is in my own mods folder. I have the BradenLord's city because I edited units and buildings at the same time. So I have pretty much all the files you need in this folder. The first thing you want to look at, for example, let's look at unit. Actually, let's look at units first. So the export description unit file can be found in the data folder, and that's just one of the text files that are floating down here. What that does, this has details about all the units in the game, their stats, like what kind of weapons they wield and stuff. It's mostly explained in here, so I'm not gonna take too much time to explain it, and it does a very nice job of explaining itself. So just be wary of that, and yeah. And the export description unit unums has this shows you this is a reference to the export units folder here, text file. These two are very well linked. These names also link with the export description unit file. Under the unit, there'll be a space where it'll show you. It'll have, like, I think it's in parentheses, and it'll say like Barb, Peasant, Britain, and that'll link into here. And then these link into this file. These are for, you want to fill out all these for every different unit that you're going to create. So if you're changing the name of stuff, you don't have to change these. You can leave this file alone. But these all link into here. And for example, the Barbarian, Peasant, Britain is in here. And it gives, again, the thing in the brackets is what the text files are referencing, and then this is the actual output in the game. So, for example, it says Barbarian Peasants, and then Barbarian Peasant description. This is what pops up if you right-click them on the campaign map, or right-click them, pause in the battle, in the long description. And then this is what pops up if you're doing a custom battle or an online battle. This is the little short pop-up that kind of explains their basic capability. As you can see, I have some modified units in here, like Barbarian Elite, Spanish Royal Cavalry, stuff like that. A devastating unit of armor-piercing cavalry, yeah. So that's all you basically need to know about that. you just got to be very careful on the formatting. So now that that's over, the export description buildings, however, does not have very good. It says generated from a spreadsheet. Please do not modify by hand. This one is not very well explained. This right here is the hidden resources available in the game. Right now there's Sparta, Rome, and Italy. What Italy is used for, what the game uses Italy for, is triggering the Marian reforms. When a settlement in Italy grows to a huge city level, it becomes a Marian reforms. You can also tie this to other unit recruitment. Like, say you only want urban cohorts to be able to be trained in Italy. You can take that on to certain things, and that'll happen. And Sparta, it influences the creation of Spartan hoplites. In Rome, in the standard campaign, it's used for if you want legionary first cohorts or early legionary first cohorts. Those can only be trained in Rome, so just be careful of that. As you can see here, this is the building level. This is exactly what you put in the disk strat. So if you want references, go to the disk unit and the export description unit, export description buildings. Those will have the exact names that you can put into the describe strategy man file. So that's in the campaign section. If you missed that, go back, and that is explained there. Again, this is the building level, and this shows all the levels. This is just kind of like a short note. You have to make sure to fill this out because otherwise it'll glitch for some reason. And then it starts with the individual buildings here. This is one building here. What this does, it has the name, and then it has the required factions, which is everyone, because everybody can build a governor's house. And then it has the capability, which is the recruitment here. And if you go down into temple, and if you go down in the temple area, if we go down real quick, capability, it becomes, there's other things like happiness bonus, law bonus, And so you can tack those onto buildings if you want. Like I tacked happiness bonus on the walls because they make you feel more secure. And down here, it's how many turns it takes to construct, the cost for building it, and the settlement level at which it can be built. You might say, well, why is that necessary? Well, for example, stables can only start being built in a large town as opposed to like a town or a village. So you need to delegate that, and academies can only build in minor cities, so that's important. And this shows the upgrade path. So technically, you could screw this up and switch it. You could switch different things, but that's kind of silly and not really necessary at all. But that's basically what's going on in here. And there's other buildings you can look at, but it basically follows the same format. So again, just make sure you're very careful in the formatting. And then the export buildings file, and the export buildings descriptions unum file. It works pretty much the same way as excuse me, the same way as the unit descriptions file, except they're kind of clumped together and it's a little uglier, but it's the same basic thing. So, for example, in here, you can actually change the repair messages, repair damage, all these things. You can change that, which is interesting. But under here, you can change government. You can change the descriptions of things. Like here's governor's house. Here's the name. Governor's house descriptions. Governor's house. This is just a basic thing. And for all the factions, they have a separate file here, as you can see. Like barbarian is listed, Carthage is listed, Eastern is listed. If you don't specify, if something is not covered, it defaults to up here. And this works pretty much the same as the campaign descriptions file and the describe unit, export units file. So pretty much the same thing. You just got to be very careful. And I didn't see Governor's Palace, High King's Hall. That's what I did. No, I didn't do High King's Hall. There we go, King's Chambers. There you go. That's what I call them. So let's read my description for the barbarian large city. This lavish building is rare to see for such an uncivilized people. Usually these buildings denote the most powerful town of the nation, and all of the extermination actions happen here. This building also allows the nation to train elite units that can change the tide of the battle. Yes, I agree. So that's about it for the text file modifications. Again, you just have to insert these. You have to reinsert these in the correct spot. So just make sure they're in the right spot and replace the old file. And again, make sure you make backups of all these files, because if sometimes errors can happen that are very hard to fix and you can't tell what's wrong. So having the backup file is very nice. And also make saves of your mods. You know, because if something's working and then you've done a lot of work and something's working and then you add something else and then the whole file doesn't work anymore, you don't want to start from scratch again. So make sure you make lots of backups. So anyway, I bet you're wondering, well, BradenLord, what are exactly all of your mods? Well, let's go look at them, okay? Here I am back in Windows Rome Total War, and I'm going to show off the mods that I've done. So, single player, provincial campaign. I was working on a 450 BC mod where Troy became the focus. Pergamum I turned into Troy, and that became the focus of the world. But I switched that over to a different version of Rome Total War because it requires a lot of changes in the core files that would change all of the things. So I decided it would be better to do it in another file. Europa 270 BC is a very interesting mod. If you're familiar with Darth mod, this is a Darth mod 8.0 map for Rome Total War. And basically what this is just a very large scale map. So it's very epic. But in Darth mod they changed around the units and stuff. So what I did is I reverted everything back to the vanilla Rome Total War style. Just because I like the mods, I like what they're trying to do with it, but it just doesn't feel right if you're not playing with their kind of the original units in mind. So as you can see, there's a lot more settlements in Italy. The map is huge. You're actually zooming in on the mini map is very, very nice. Finally, and it actually looks crisp. And basically, you can see there's tons more territories everywhere, and it's very intense, very large scale. Each settlement is worth a lot less, but battles take a lot longer. The Imperial campaign actually takes quite a bit of time, a realistic amount of time actually. And I'm playing through as the Brudii currently, and it's pretty fun, I gotta say. So there's that mod. I like it. It's pretty cool. Yeah. Yes it is. And then, for example, we have other mods here, like Romus Unitus is another campaign mod that I've done. Ideally, you want to play as the Great Empire of Rome. It's 15 years before the Senate divides small three Roman empires into 3 sections, controlled by 3 different families. Now, however, you have the chance to change history. You control all of Roman lands. All choices are up to you. The Greeks still held their colonies in the south of Italy. Carthage is getting comfortable in Sicily. Gauls pillaging the land up in the north. Can you defeat these foes and unify all of Italy under a command? If you're able to do this, great challenges await. Carthage, Gaul, and the Greeks still control most of the world, and they're hungry for revenge. You must defeat many factions in your road to victory, and most of the world under your control. Are you up to this challenge? Can you take over the world and usher in an era of peace and dominance? Of course. You have no one to support you, no senate to guide you. You can do it, Imperator. So basically what I did with this is I got rid of the other Roman factions. You can get rid of factions. You can't add new ones, but you can get rid of factions completely if you just get rid of all traces of them. And I made it so that the Julii, they control these 3 settlements here. The Greeks control southern Italy, with Croton and Tarentum here. And the Gauls control Arminium. And what you have to do, basically, the campaign goals are, you pretty much have to kill all the major factions, all the major deadly factions of the world. And basically you just have to outlast them. So it's kind of like without the other factions. It's very interesting. And for example, like in Rome, we start with an army barracks, which allows us to train triarii from the beginning. So you can get very advanced armies, but it's very difficult because the Greeks and the Gauls early on are very strong, and Carthage is like able to grow in power without too much opposition. They have Masana also, and yeah, it's very difficult but very entertaining. So yeah, and it's 13 years earlier, as you can see. Basically, all the other major mods that I've done, you guys have seen. The BradenLord's City mod, all the unit modifications and stuff. Basically, everything you've seen. And I'll show you even more of those when we get into the Thracian campaign. So thank you for joining me, guys, on this mod video, and I hope I answered most of your questions. If you have any other questions, feel free to PM me, and I'll go over something with you. But this is BradenLord signing out. Thanks for watching. Peace.